So, ways of studying is the point of these videos. And the first thing I think is important is vocabulary. Because when you're learning a new subject, there's almost always new vocabulary. Like, even if you wanted to learn about football, there's vocabulary that is specific to football. Okay? Let alone if you're studying, to be a neurosurgeon or a rocket scientist or an architect or an engineer or a construction worker. Okay? There's always new vocabulary. So that would be my suggestion to start with the vocabulary. So I've copied the list, and what I'm going to do is at this point, I'm basically going to skim through and I'm going to look for the definitions. Now, you could go to the glossary, and that's fair enough, but you need to actually type out the definitions. Okay, so like here, it says some of the water moves over the surface and some moves through the ground as groundwater. Okay, um, and so what I can get from that is I'm going to paraphrase that. And for groundwater, my definition is going to be water that moves underground. Okay? Now, let's see real quick. I'm going to open the textbook in another tab. Oops. And I'm going to come down to the glossary. All right, so groundwater would be in the G's. And we'll see what the definition is here. Fresh water that moves through pore spaces and fractures in soil and rock beneath the land surface. So my definition is not wrong. They're a little bit more specific. I do think that we should probably clarify that this is fresh water that moves underground. Okay? And so as long as, like, for example, gradient, the slope of a stream. So now I could copy and paste that, but copying and pasting does not require reading. And without reading, you're not learning anything. So I'm going to actually type the definition, the slope of a stream. Okay. Do I have any other G words here? I do not. So I can click the back button on this tab. And let's go to A, and we'll find alluvial fan. All right, so an alluvial fan. It says a curved fan-shaped coarse sediment deposit that forms when a stream meets flat ground. All right, so I'm going to say a curved fan-shaped deposit or sediment deposit that forms when a stream meets flat ground. Okay, so I paraphrase it a little bit, but I still get the definition, and I've read the definition. That begins the learning process. All right, so I'll finish these and um, pause the video so I don't have a long video. It is 10:13 right now. All right, so I've unpaused for a second here. It's 10:15, and we have a column, and it says a cave deposit formed by merging of stalactite and a stalagmite. Now, I point this out because column means a lot of things. Is it a column in a newspaper? Is it a column on the periodic table? Is it a column in ancient Roman architecture? All right, it could be a lot of things. So, one of the reasons I encourage you to do vocabulary based on the textbook is that you get the vocabulary with the right context. If you just try to Google the word, you may not get the right context. All right, pausing again. All right, so it's now 10:24. So that didn't take very long at all. I was only doing one section. This is 10.1. But now it's time for part two. Okay. And so for part two, what I think we need to do is use the objectives and read. 10.1. Okay. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to the textbook here. I'm going to come up here and I'm going to copy those 3 questions and paste them in. Sometimes it's important to you have to reformat things. Here we go. Okay. So now I have these 3 questions. Now these 3 questions, these objectives, should guide my reading. So as I'm reading through this, I'm going to be looking for these answers. How surface streams produce erosion? What are the types of deposits left by streams? And describe landforms that are produced as groundwater flows. Now, after doing the vocabulary, even if you just got the vocabulary directly from the glossary without reading any of the lesson, some of that should sound familiar because you actually read the definitions and you typed them or you wrote them out by hand. Okay? Copying and pasting is not your friend here. All right? So as soon as you see how do streams produce erosion, well, that might not be too familiar. But types of deposits left by streams? There were at least 2 definitions that talked about deposits left by streams. Maybe you don't remember what they are without looking at the glossary, but it should be familiar to you. Okay? Landforms produced as groundwater flows. There were at least 2 definitions that talked about water dripping in a cave. Again, you may not remember exactly what they are at this point, but they should be familiar to you. And that means that the next time you encounter these concepts, it's going to stick in your brain a little bit more. It's not about studying for hours and hours and hours. It's about multiple interactions with the information. Okay? So again, I'm going to pause and I'm going to answer these objectives. All right, so here we have a subtitle that says erosion and deposition by streams. And then below that says erosion by streams. So where do you think I'm going to find describe how surface streams produce erosion? I'm probably going to find it in this paragraph or in this section. So I'm going to read and answer the question. Okay, so here I've gone through each objective and I've answered it. Now you'll notice if you look at what I've done, first of all, I've paraphrased things, but also so they're in my own words as much as possible. But also I've included vocabulary, but again, I wrote it based on the text instead of the glossary, and I did it in my own words for the most part. Now, some people might say, but Mr. Furlow, you've already done the vocabulary, so why should you do it again, answering the objective? The short answer is when I did it for the vocabulary, I just did it for the vocabulary. Now I'm adding context to it. So when I look at dissolved load and bid load and suspended load, those are all now connected together. I know in my brain that dissolved load, suspended load, bid load, meanders, floodplain, these are all connected together because they have to do with stream erosion. And when I look at number 2, I know that placer deposits, floodplains, natural levees, deltas, and alluvial fans all have to do with stream deposition. And when I look at number 3, by reading through that and answering number 3, I've connected together groundwater, stalagmites, stalactites, caves, travertine rocks. Right? All of that is connected together as part of a landform created by groundwater. All right? So it's about making connections and grouping information as well as knowing the information. All right. So part 3, I'm not going to show you right now because I'm running out of time in planning. And it's 11:04. It did not take me that long to do the things. I had about a 20-minute phone call that I had to take. Anyway, the third part is read, recite, and review. And what we're going to do, I'll show you in another video, is we're going to read. And as we read each paragraph, we're going to write one sentence from that paragraph, right? A one sentence summary. Now, some paragraphs might be longer, and maybe you do more than one sentence, but at least one sentence from every paragraph. And I would include diagrams as well, like not the diagram itself, but information from diagrams. They might need to be included as well. But that'll be another video. As always, I hope this helps, and I'll see you in class.